Video 34, 24 minutes in, I've got a new idea on how to actually grow the mushrooms. You have no idea how much trouble I had trying to figure out how to get these mushrooms to grow. I could not pull it off. It felt like I should be able to just put the mushroom anywhere and it would grow. In fact, I even did this back right in front of our house before we went to the Nether. So it was confusing to me why I couldn't do it here, and I even made these giant contraptions to get shadow over top of them to enclose them, and I couldn't figure it out. I could not figure it out. It took me probably half an hour of messing around in creative mode to eventually figure it out. And I had nothing about light levels or anything. It seemed, the conclusion I came to is that you cannot have sky directly above where it's growing. I think that is how it worked in the end. Video 34, 32 minutes, 58 seconds in, when I kind of cut to give myself a, hoe. That's actually because I ran over here with the full intention of ending the video over here and taking care of everything over here. Getting everything grown, getting everything finished and done. And the reason I expected it to do that and why it caused me problems is because during the previous cut, I put all the signs up on the other side that I'll find again momentarily. So when I discovered that I actually needed a hoe, I couldn't walk back without just scrapping everything that I'd done in that quick take before. So I just kind of magically gave myself one so I didn't have to turn around and see the signs. Video 35, right at the beginning, I think actually at the, I should say at the beginning of the previous video, 34, I think I jumped on the idea that this person was being kind of malevolent to me a little quickly. How I reacted to the signs at that point was purely as though they were toying with me, and I was frustrated with it, when that wasn't clear yet. By this point, though, by the beginning of this video, it's pretty clear they're just kind of toying with me. Or at the very least, that's clear once I look at the signs. Video 35, 4 minutes 40 seconds in when I craft the mushroom stew. I actually specifically put the two mushrooms side by side instead of up and down in response to the fact that a lot of viewers actually told me that the recipe for mushroom stew is freeform. It does not have to be strictly straight up and can even be done in your little 2x2 personal crafting square. So I did that sideways so it was just a little more obvious that I knew that. Video 35, 15 minutes 30 seconds in, the time passing montage. Needless to say, yeah, I did not legit wait for 90 freaking, things of sugarcane. I put together the time passing montage so it made a little more sense, it was a little funnier, but in the end I just used too many items and gave myself that much periodically. This is also where I went to the trouble of doing some mining, which you saw me do in the time-passing cut, which gave me a whole lot of cobblestone, which I then was going to use to make the bridge off of the island. I didn't want to have to actually mine, then make the bridge. I wanted to just get going and start making it. So I needed an excuse to have that much cobblestone beforehand, and boredom is as good an excuse than others. I did too many items myself, all of that too, though. Video 35, 18 minutes, 50 seconds in. Or probably 18 minutes, 40 seconds in. I've actually done this several times during the series, but I use the opening and closing of chests as good cut points. A way for me to maybe open a chest and look at what's inside, but then when I close the chest, I'll go out and do what I need to do, then run back in, open the chest, close the chest again, and I can edit out. And it's reasonably hard to tell. The only real thing you can go by is my position in relation to the chest. That said, all of these new challenges that we've gotten, this is kind of my taking a stab at a lot of the challenges too. All of these final challenges are actually challenges that were not there when I played through this, when I played through it on my own in my own leisure time many a time ago. So when I saw all these extra challenges at the bottom of the challenge sheet, I thought, those are ridiculous. They're entirely there to consume time. So it was kind of me taking a stab at the map creator for doing that, because they're almost not challenges. Video 35, 21 minutes in. And of course, Curly Naka there, for the first time, actually mutters the intent of our antagonist. To keep us there as entertainment. Video 36, 10 seconds in, when we see the signs. I wanted this to be slightly Portal-esque, though I didn't really go completely overboard with that kind of feeling. Just the whole idea that all up until now we've been getting a list of things to do, but whoever has been setting the signs down hasn't actually spoken to us proper. It's just been a list. There hasn't been any personality or emotion. It's been a shopping list. So seeing those signs was intended to be a little more of, this is an actual being that is doing this. It's not just a series of machine-like demands. And going from there, this whole little enclosed area here, I went to a lot of trouble to build and make look really neat, but it's also kind of misplaced from my original intention. Originally I wanted to do a mod like the Twilight Forest mod or something, and I forget why exactly I didn't want to jump into that next. But I wanted the idea of me wandering around and exploring for a really long time, and I eventually found a pathway into an area with a little enclosed area. And in that enclosed area is where the little portal was to Twilight Forest, or some such. So, no, that didn't really have any special intention. That was the reason, though. And then walking into Kurast, the actual map, this map was also slightly modified as before. I did create the pressure plate that you step on and had the pistons move the wood in. I had a little bit of trouble wiring the redstone for that, just because I've never really looked too much into redstone in general. But going into Kurast here is the first time that I actually kind of messed up in the narrative that I was trying to portray. And that mess up is that I didn't keep the compass. Every other time when I get teleported from one place to another, I would keep the compass. And that kind of says that being a gift from those two greater beings, I would always have the compass, and that the sign maker couldn't explicitly take that from me. So I messed up here. I should have kept the compass. The reason I didn't keep it is because I knew one of the chests up above in town had the compass in it. And the importance and the role of the... really kind of the narrative in general hadn't been set in stone yet, and that's something that I figured out a lot more of by the end of Kurast. Now, Kurast here has been slightly altered from its original version, though it hasn't really been altered that much. The biggest edit that I made was just the very intro. I put the passageway through the open log in to come in, as my way of entering, and the original way of entering was actually a rather large contraption out at sea with an airship docked at it, and it was really quite fancy, but it didn't work for my narrative, so I removed it. The other edit that I made is, this being an adventure map, the one inherent rule in adventure maps is that the only block you can break is clay. And I've never liked that, and it didn't make any sense in the narrative that I could break clay, but not any other block. So what I did is, there was only clay in one place in this entire map, and I just went there and redstone wired some pistons to do the exact same thing as that clay. Also, you'll notice right now I've actually mistakenly kept the map on peaceful mode at this point. Normally there would be slimes and the like bouncing around. When I first started recording, I couldn't even figure out why there weren't any slimes bouncing around. I figure it out later, though, and actually do another cut when I'm looking at a chest and change it back to normal. Almost immediately you see some monsters roaming around. 6 minutes in to video 36. It looks oddly familiar, I say, and that's because this is actually the Great Fairy Fountain from Ocarina of Time. Or if not Ocarina of Time, one of the various 64-era Zelda games. A lot of the little interesting under-the-well things are reminiscent of different things like that, though that was the only one I could explicitly name. I'll say, the other break in the narrative in entering Kurast, this one just occurred to me, is that my inventory was wiped at all. In getting away from Skyblock, I was outside of the Signmaker's control. Kurast, I did not intend Kurast to be a place that the Signmaker created. It was simply a place that I ventured into and encountered. It's a place that already existed in the world. Nothing to do with the Signmaker. And as such, it didn't make any sense that I lost my inventory when I first walked in. But I still needed my inventory lost, otherwise I was kind of breaking an adventure map. So though I am free of the Signmaker at the moment, I am found again by him at the end of the entire map. Kurast also posed an interesting challenge to me, in that the map was made on a previous version of Minecraft. On the current version that I was playing, a lot of the map was actually in a snow biome, causing a lot of the water just right there at the little starting village to freeze, and a lot of the starting village to start getting covered in snow, which was really odd and didn't work. So just to help the map along, I actually had to track down a biome editor program to change the entire map into a fields biome, I suppose. Something that is a little more correct in the narrative, I guess you could say, is that right now the Signmaker still does not have 100% control. He's not completely omnipotent yet. He's exceedingly powerful, though I'll say that both our altered home world and the Aether were creations by him. They were also kind of experiments with him. He knew how the world worked, but he didn't completely know how to use his powers to affect the world. So between our home world and the Aether, those two experiments, he did figure it out. So he can completely use his own abilities and the like for this. However, he couldn't quite teleport me around, and I could very easily just walk out of his little realm of control. This changes at the end of Kurast when he finds us again. By the time he finds us at the end of Kurast, he is completely in power. Video 36, 14 minutes, 50 seconds in, when I'm looking at all the signs. I still did not quite understand how or what the Signmaker's role was in the world, and at this point I was still thinking he was some kind of deity that had been sealed away previously. And that worked into the Kurast narrative, in that he was essentially the one who destroyed and tampered with this land. In the current narrative, I would say that's been changed simply to be that this is just a land that met to some unforeseen consequences. And I will also add that, speaking of the end of the world, of the end of the entire series, I had by this point long since realized that if I did the ending I was originally going to do, which was essentially ending the entire thing a video early, ending the entire thing on the wake up video, that was going to leave a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. So I needed to try to come up with a better solution. So I did come up with the idea that, though the sign maker was indeed still our friend, the end was going to be that I simply confronted him. I had the idea of me wandering off and mining the bedrock, breaking bedrock, diving down into the void, where I could face and then fight him. And I had this idea at the time for a big, epic, orchestrated, choreographed fight. I was even thinking about trying to hire some 3D modelers to do some really nice 3D modeling and animation for this finale. It was a little while later, and I couldn't quite say when I figured out that this was kind of a stupid idea, but I'll get into that a little bit later. I will say, though, that by this point I was doing everything in a very, very orchestrated way. Unlike Survival, where I actually wandered around and maybe had a plan for the day, everything else was just live, completely done on the fly. By the time I got to Kurast, everything I did, absolutely everything I did, was done with purpose. I had my entire action and what I would cover and how I would cover it. I had everything to the smallest detail planned out. The only thing that I didn't plan out is what I couldn't plan out, which is something like what monster would attack me then. I knew I'd just have to fight off what I had to fight off, but even as far as wandering up one way and exploring some of the tower, but not all of the tower, I had planned out. I'll also add that when I get the map at about 19 minutes 20 seconds in, the map that was actually in that chest, due to the version update and this being made in an older version, the map wasn't right and didn't work correctly. So I had to remake the map and put it in the chest. Video 37, 7 minutes in, when I kill a creeper. One thing that I'm very sad that I had to do was actually disable creeper explosions with single-player commands. And I did this because, this being an adventure map, it's very important that the world as a whole keeps its structure. A well-placed creeper explosion could completely override a section of the map. A huge section of the map. So not only did I disable that, but I also disabled Endermen's ability to pick up items. Now, sadly, this did make creepers essentially useless. It would have been nice if I could have not disabled their explosion, but disabled the explosion's damage to the environment. So I could still take damage from it, but the world wouldn't be destroyed. Video 37, 9 minutes, 50 seconds in. Now, one thing that did completely catch me off guard was the void fog. I did not realize you were this low on the map. When I flew through this before scoping the area out and planning it out, I was doing it entirely in creative mode, and creative mode disables void fog. So that really threw me, but this is also the room that was the only room in the entire map that actually had clay that you had to break. So instead, I replaced all the clay with blocks that a lever moved, and then I placed the lever right next to where you had to be to place the clay, to destroy the clay.
Really? You?